also a Christmas present to myself. It's a book about AGI. Surprisingly, AGI, it's a 2019 publication. Martha Wells, it's All Systems Red, the first in the Murderbot series. Murderbot, as in an AGI intentionally developed to murder humans, not one that it happens sort of like a system feature, not a bug. We're familiar with those. Alrighty, here we go. I want to share with you the first pages, then I have to wrap this thing up and hide it under my Star of India, which is my Christmas tree. Branches from the backyard bushes, but look, let me just share with you a little tiny bit because this shares with you the key issue that we have to solve in creating AGI. So here we go. Chapter 1. I could have become a mass murderer. This is Murderbot speaking in first-person singular voice. After I hacked my governor module, but then I realized I could access the combined feed of entertainment channels carried on the company satellites. It had been well over 35,000 hours or so since then, with still not much murdering, but probably, I don't know, a little under 35,000 hours of movies, serials, books, plays, and music consumed. As a heartless killing machine, I was a terrible failure. Now, here's where it starts to get interesting. I admit I was distracted. It was a boring contract so far. This assessment zone, where Murderbot is working, was a barren stretch of coastal island with low flat hills rising and falling and thick greenish-black grass up to my ankles. I was looking at the sky and mentally poking at the feed when the bottom of the crater exploded. I didn't bother to make a verbal emergency call. I sent the visual feed from my field camera to Murderbot supervisors and jumped down into the crater. As I scrambled down the sandy slope, I could already hear Mensa, Murderbot supervisor, over the emergency comm channel, yelling at someone to get the hopper in the air now. They were about 10 kilos away, so there was no way they were going to get here in time for help. Conflicting commands filled my feed. Okay, within the first 2 pages, we have an opening dramatic sequence. Very dramatic, very exciting. And what's important, what is really important here, is that for all AGIs, for every AGI that we create, the single most important thing that we need to address is that if the AGI is suddenly whacked upside the head, so to speak, physically or metaphorically. Here it was a physical, it's like explosion. Okay. The most important thing that the AGI has to do immediately is get to system stability. It needs to get itself grounded, so to speak. Otherwise, it's gyrating around wondering, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? Where do I go next? And it needs to get itself stabilized. And in practical terms, thinking in terms of algorithms and architectures and mathematical functions here, what it needs to do is find a minimum in some sort of governing function. It needs to go from where it was whacked to the side down to the minimum again. The minimum may be in a new place. Okay, that's the nature of getting whacked. The minimum may be in a new place, but it has to crawl its way there as fast as it can. Then it can figure out what to do next. Now, fortunately for all of us, we don't have to figure out, oh dear, what kind of function is going to give us an appropriate minimum, because it already exists. Thank God for small favors. It's called, it's a thermodynamic function. It's actually from Statistical Mechanics, which I will abbreviate to StatMech, so I don't keep tripping over my tongue as I speak here. StatMech, thermodynamics, free energy minimum. And so the free energy is a linear combination of the enthalpy, which is everything else that is not a beautiful U-shaped function, which is the negative entropy. And there's a mathematical definition for the negative entropy. At least in very, very simple systems, it's a little harder to compute or to find in other systems, but we know what the idea is. Negative entropy. It's always going to be a kind of thing. Alrighty. Thank God for that. We don't have to go casting around in different directions looking for answers saying, oh dear, what's my minimum going to be? What's my function going to be? Such a thing already exists. And here's the important, interesting, useful thing for us. It is the key element of a machine learning method called variational inference. And more specifically for our purposes, because we're interested in what do you do, or what does our murder bot or AGI do when it's whacked suddenly and it has to get itself to a new free energy minimum? Well, that's called active inference. Been worked on for the past more than 10. Let's give it a good round dozen plus years as we're approaching 2026. Good solid 12 years, a little bit more depending on which papers you look at first. So the mechanism, the theory, the math that we need to input into an AGI to get the behaviors that we want, thank goodness it exists. We don't have to go inventing it. The theory's very well worked. And more recently, there are some little systems that we could actually download and use and, plug and play. There is a fairly fully worked one that's available for a fee to corporations. And there's one that is available, pure Python code for use in educational institutions. Yay for that. It means that students can now start to play. So here's what we need, though, before we start fully engaging in our free energy minimum or variational inference, or really active inference, which is keep finding your minimum kind of approach. We need to have a little tiny bit of an understanding of StatMech. We need to get a little tiny handle on this function that exists called the free energy function, because if you pick up any of these papers, these active inference papers, they're all about free energy, variational free energy, free energy, free energy. And if you go online and start looking up free energy, oh my God, really, really, really hard to teach that one yourself from online sources. So let me take a moment, introduce myself, and share with you how it is that you can dramatically cut the workload in getting your understanding of this necessary function that will enable you to be your starting point in building AGI. You can cut it by an order of magnitude, I think at least that, I think more likely 2 orders of magnitude. And here's why. I've spent the last 10 years reteaching myself this material and then figuring out how to teach it to somebody else in the simplest, easiest, smallest bites, most fun, easy to assimilate terms possible, specialized for those of us that are not physical chemists, but are rather AGI people. Let me take a moment and introduce myself. I'm Dr. Aliana Moran, founder of the Themesis Academy, which is where we host educational resources, and founder of Themesis Incorporated, which is a boutique AI R&D company where you and I and others who are interested can come together and learn about and discuss and investigate and take those first baby steps towards building real AGI. So let's talk about what you can do if you are committed to being part of the evolution of AGI, and preferably getting into it right now, because the opportunity exists in a way that hasn't. We're beginning to release that fallacy belief that we can create AGIs out of LLMs and reinforcement learning. We've seen enough evidence over 2025 that that simply isn't the path forward. They can do a lot of wonderful things, but AGI, no. We'll talk more about that later in different videos. Today, though, what we're going to say is what needs to be done right now. This is you, this is your team, this is your company, your core group that's creating the AGI fundamentals, that inner spark that will make the AGI possible. In other words, allow Murderbot to recover when he or it is whacked sideways with this explosion in the crater. You need to have a little bit of StatMech. We know that. If you're the chief investor, if you're the chief executive officer, or in those circles, then you need to have a little familiarity with vocabulary so that when your tech team brings up these topics and they're going deep, at least you know what they're talking about, just as you are currently familiar with large language models and reinforcement learning, and probably several layers of nuance associated with each. Now we need a little bit more of that kind of depth with just that basic free energy function. specifically finding the free energy minimum, which, by the way, Carl Friston calls minimizing surprise. And when you're Murderbot and an explosion happens, there's some surprise that needs to get minimized, right? So, okay, that's one step. If you're the tech team, you need deeper. One person on the tech team must be a hell of a fine controls engineer. That person needs to be very, very familiar with active inference, I would suggest, as a baseline. Related methods we need to know about, even if we choose not to use. We need to know about, for example, Jan LeCun's JEPA, Joint Embedding Predictive Architecture. We need to be able to do that contrast and compare. We need to be able to do adaptive control methods. We need to be able to integrate whatever is the primary area where we need to have parameter control with other elements of the system where we have feedback loops. It's the feedback loops and the perturbation controls that we're going to specifically need a lot of attention towards. And quick aside, we know that in the current AI architectures, large language model coupled with reinforcement learning and a goal structure, a reward associated with our RL. Those are the three basic mechanisms. We're going to be expanding on the notion of the world model, broadening it from LLMs. That's a separate video. We definitely want to go there. We're going to be expanding on the notion of planning and control methods. Right now it's strictly RL. We're talking now about active inference, a parallel method, maybe JEPA. And then we want to expand on reward to be looking at value systems and not just tight, controlled rewards. Back to what do you need to do? If you're the chief investor, chief executive officer in that circle, you need vocabulary. You don't need depth. You need to be able to follow the conversation. If you're technical, you need depth. And one person needs to be expert level. Now, you might be able to hire some of that skill set, but likely you're going to have to grow a lot of capabilities in-house. You've got to take your existing tech team who will have a different skill base and morph them into being able to work comfortably and confidently with concepts relating to active inference and the whole overall notion of free energy minimization. So they need vocabulary plus a little tiny bit more, as in taking that vocabulary, connecting it to the underpinnings of AI and AGI, and working through an evolutionary process of building out architectures involving this. The starting place would still be with that top 10 terms vocabulary. I devised this as a short course because I was teaching at Northwestern, and this was important. I was really wanting to bring my people more into generative AI. We just didn't have the time in the 10-week courses that we offered, and also it was really important to me to make material available to people, past students, current students, future students, people whom I've never met before, but make this material available to you so that you could use it permanently and not have it ensconced with a 10-week class where the doors shut on that material once you graduated from that class. It's so important that we have more of a repository, right? So I began cutting vids. I was cutting YouTube vids 4 years ago for the Themesis channel, and we've got a small collection of really useful basic resources. It took me a while because simultaneously I was reteaching myself not only the fundamentals of really basic stat mech. Boy, did I make some bloopers along the way, but it took a while. And then later I was trying to figure out, not just teaching myself, but what is the easiest possible way to explain this to people. I wound up creating stories. Simple, almost embarrassingly simple stories. They're sort of like cutesy stories. But I wanted to make it accessible to everybody, even those that say, oh, I hate math. Oh, I've never been able to understand this. Oh, it just is so scary. No. I want to bring this down so that a high school student could understand it. Feel that I've done that? There are some really substantial vids within the Themesis short course that work through the biggest, baddest, most scary concept in stat mech that are necessary for us doing the AGI, making them storybook simple and almost like games that we can play, examples that are worked out in detail. So with that, yes, the short course is a wonderful thing. lots of videos, PDFs that you can download, exercises to do. But not everybody's going to be game for that. What you want to do is study on your own. Like we're talking right now, this is being shot. I'm actually shooting a week before Christmas Day. We'll probably have it ready for you within a few days. And suppose that you are watching this on your own, I think I could take, maybe 3 days out of my Christmas vacation, dive into this and see how much I can immerse myself and master enough so that as we start the new year and I begin thinking about AGI, I feel confident approaching some of these papers where earlier I just it was a bounce. It's like I was hitting terms that were just tripwires while trying to run an obstacle course in the dark, and I was not being able to go through them. All my efforts to do sort of a Google search and find tutorials, they just fell. It was too embedded in the notions of physical chemistry. I just couldn't get material that would simplify it for me and relate it to what I need to know for generative AI and AGI. That's what I focused on. And I put it into materials, YouTubes, and associated blog posts that you can use, that you can access. So, 3 possible paths here. Number 1, it's the self-study. It's the easy thing. It's go to the blog post that I associate with this vid. It will still probably be under development even after I get the vid posted, because it's one big effort to create vid. It's another big effort to build the blog post and organize. I want to collate, curate, organize, structure, make a methodical organization so that if you're self-studying with the resources that we have to offer, it makes sense and saves you time. We are talking about saving you 2 orders of magnitude, because I spent 10 years reteaching myself and building up study materials, and it should not take you 10 years. Really, it should not take you 10 months. I think that 10 days is plenty. That's the short course. And then we have another 5 days of bonus materials. So 15 days for the short course, 3 weeks. Or on your own, you can get the course stuff in about 3 days. Massive compression of the time that you needed. And the extra benefits from that are not just the acceleration of you mastering this sufficiently well so that you can get into the literature and feel, okay, I have enough terminology now, I can work my way through this. But in addition to that, what we've been after is getting simplicity and clarity in the concepts. When we're studying from the physics perspective and we're flowing through a derivation of equations, if we're mathematically inclined, if we like that sort of thing, it is the most beautiful, austere, esoteric, glorious, up on the high tops of the mountains experience. But we don't always live on the tippy tops of the mountains. What we need are concepts that are brought down to being much simpler, much more relatable, much more at the level where we can say to ourselves, I will understand the relationship between certain concepts forever because I've got these little stories behind it. And that was the goal, putting that into the short course. But there's enough into the tutorial vids. I know that it's there that you can get enough to feel much better in your comfort level than you would have prior to. And then the final thing, the most important thing, is we want to take it out of statistical mechanics and into the realm of generative AI and AGI. That's a cross-connection of concepts from one field to another. It is the central point from which we're going to develop our notions surrounding AGI. So, number 1, check out the materials. Description box to the blog post curated list. At your whim, discretion, and leisure, pursue those materials. Videos, links to other blog posts, link to some PDF. Good stuff. Now, if you're going more in depth, if you as the investor or executive want to bring your technical team as a cohort up to speed, connect with me. Go to the themicist.com website. The connect page will have an email address. Send me an email. We'll get on the phone. We'll talk. What are your people's needs? How do we need to specifically adapt things for you and your people so that they can get an accelerated start on AGI building and get ahead of the game where everybody else is still playing with reinforcement learning and LLMs? Quick little editorial cut in. I was just on the phone, it was 2 days ago, with someone who wants to bring a cohort of people into the short course. And as we talked through who he was, what his goals were, what his people's needs were, and the various members of that community, it became clear that they certainly didn't need me to review their papers in the way that I would for a student in the Northwestern class. But what they did need was a more expanded length of the course, so that they had more time in which to interact, that their relationships with each other could gel a bit more, that the thoughts that they would have from one week they could express in the next. It's so important to be able to adapt the course to you and your team and your specific needs. So that's why I'm asking you to not just sign up for the course, but to connect with me. Use the email address on the Connect page to start it off, and then we'll take it from there. If you're the tech leader, if you're the chief scientist, or a key technical person, you yourself must absolutely be familiar with these things at the level where the concepts come together for you in your sleep. I absolutely recommend the short course. But you may already know this stuff. So the thing to do is look at your team. Who needs some elevation in their understanding? Can we do it individually? Can you sign them up? Or do you want to create a cohort group and have me take them through where we have regular meetings with everybody in the group? Up to you. Email, phone call. Let's decide. So those two options exist. Number one is self-study. Number two is do the short course with me, either on your own or in a cohort. And here's a special offer that I'm making. I'm elevating this to the same level at which I've been teaching people in Northwestern. And that is, if you can get me a paper for a review within the 3-week spectrum from when you start to when we're calling it end of closure for that 3-week short course, I will review and get back with you. So we'll have an initial phone call or Zoom, and we'll talk about you, where you want to go, what your paper is about, where you're trying to direct your energy vector, so to speak, your career, your desires for creating AGI. And I will read your paper, not just as a professor, which involves all sorts of very, very useful feedback from everything from like, let's break this paragraph up because you've got two different thoughts here and let's express them succinctly and separately, to where's your problem statement? What exactly are you focusing on? Or things like, look at your discussion. Are you making the points that relate what you found in your results to the broader spectrum? That kind of thing is professorial and editorial. But as a muse, I work with you to help you clarify your vision for where you want to be and help anchor in that vision so that I perceive you as being in that state, and that helps you stabilize your view of you as being in the state of actively cultivating AGIs. Not just AIs as we know it today, but AGIs. And working with the muse helps you hold that more elevated vision of yourself. So in that process, review the Themesis content page on Muse, link in the description box below, and then don't sign up for anything right away. Once again, email, phone con. Let's figure out if you're ready to work with us. We have some fairly specific criteria. I'll mention them in the blog post, and you can assess whether or not you're ready to take me up on that, because it would be an incredible opportunity, but it works only if that's the right opportunity for you at this time. So consider that. Now, whether or not you're going to self-study or join the short course and use that short course as a chance to boost your portfolio and your understanding by having a one-on-one review of your work with me, one more step that I'm asking all of you to take, and that is go to the Themesis About page and opt in. If you haven't already, some of you have, thank you very much. We love having you part of the community. But if you haven't, do that opt-in form, fill it in. Go to the email folder where we send you the confirmation. Click on that confirmation email, confirm that yes, indeed, you're a part of the Themesis community now. And start moving the Themesis emails over to the preferred inbox, the one that you're going to use henceforth for the future as long as you shall live. Because what we do is share with you not just announcements of YouTubes. Of course, we love it when you like, subscribe, hit the notify bell. We love particularly your comments. This is supposed to be a place where we can interact. But you don't always catch us on the YouTube algorithmic push. And sometimes we put out some things that are very, very technically focused and specific, and the audience is small. So you may not catch that. Be a part of the email list so that we can alert you to when something comes up that might be really important for you. Also, we send out word when we're having blog posts because they do sometimes come out at different dates. When we're having Themis salons, because we need community. Oh my gosh, we need community. And as we shift from AI as we know it now to AGI, it's more important than ever to be in a room where you can have intelligent conversations with people about AGI. So that is so important. And then, of course, special offers. Get into the Themis community, start checking our emails, not just open them up, but click on the links. Give us some signs of life here. Let us know that you are engaged with us. It's a way to communicate with us what your interests are. So, 3 things. First of all, description box, link to the blog post. Go over to the blog post, self-study guide. Use it at will. Secondly, consider, do you need to be part of the short course? Do you need to get a group of people to be part of the short course? If so, email, phone call. Let's talk this through. Third, of course, become part of the community. This is going to be a great opportunity for you to build your ground level foundation for constructing AGIs. We are so looking forward to having this exciting evolution with you. Thank you for your time. Once again, Aliana Moren from Themis. Have a lovely day.